Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another fascinating capsule regarding the Puerto Rico economy. And we continue with the same topic that we started last week, and we have entitled our economic capsule Unfinished Business Part 2. We go with the same analysis that we were undertaking regarding the PROMESA certified fiscal plan, which they published back at the end of April, and which is really an agenda supposedly for restoring prosperity and economic growth. Really? Question mark. Well, let's look at this first table. They say there are 3 pillars to achieve growth and restoring prosperity, and one of those pillars is investing in economic growth. And in order to achieve that, they say the action that is required is energy reform. We need to really deal with investments in infrastructure. We need to reform education from K to 12, as well as higher education, and even the skills for those people who will be not necessarily having BAs in philosophy or in other esoterical degrees, but rather in the brick and mortar, in terms of maybe broadband, in terms of artificial intelligence, those skills that are needed, that they're going to invest X amount of dollars. Well, that's going to be included also in that education reform. And then the permitting reform, which election year after election year, all administrations have said the same thing. We have to reform permitting, because that is really a stumbling block in terms of not only the small but the medium term businesses, as well as the large businesses. Well, what has been happening with these reforms and these actions? They are all pending. 2023 pending. Nothing has been done yet. The next graph says, well, what is the role of these federal funds? Because we have been living in this artificial bubble of the federal funds, be it from Hurricane Maria back in 2017, then the earthquakes, then COVID, the CARES Act, the unemployment benefits, you name it. All of those funds have been allocated by Congress, US Congress. And how much of that has been dispersed? Well, this graph is eloquent. According to PROMESA board, from 2018 through 2022, Puerto Rico has received $52.2 billion, which have been dispersed. I doubt it, but anyway, I give you what they have said. And that represents 43% out of a total that Congress has allocated to Puerto Rico of $120.2 billion. Only 43% have been dispersed, if we believe that they have been dispersed. What have they been accomplishing? I showed you what was the growth in terms of real GNP growth last week. I showed you what was happening in terms of these reforms and what they would really entail, and nothing has been done yet, still pending. Well, what is the forecast then from 2023 through, yes, as you hear me, 2035? And that last segment in that magenta shaded area that you see there, you see this extraordinary increase from 2025 through 2035, as if Congress is going to wait for Puerto Rico patiently to be using all those monies. Really? Do you think so? Well, I don't think so. At any rate, it's $68 billion, which have been supposedly allocated by US Congress, but maybe they might be dispersed. Percentage is 57% out of that total, and most of that would be allocated in 2026 through 2035, the last 9 years. I don't know if you're going to be alive or not. I certainly don't expect to be around here in 2035. At any rate, let's look at some of the reforms, the structural reforms that PROMESA has said that it's important to really invest for economic growth. Well, this next graph is eloquent enough. The first, in 2023, they say, this is the fiscal year that's about to end, that with some of that reform of human and welfare reform, which is still pending, as I said at the beginning of this capsule, you know how much that's going to impact GNP growth, real GNP growth in Puerto Rico? 0.10%. Do you think it's worthwhile, all the money that is going to be undertaken, that's going to command in terms of energy resources, monetary resources, and all the dislocation that it might cause in terms of human welfare reform, for only 0.1%? I tell you, I think it's a lack of respect. Well, that's for doing business. That's a permitting process that it would allocate only 0.10%. Well, if we go to 2024, the orange bar that you see there, orange column, it says that the energy reform starting in 2024, which you know how much contribute? 0.1% to GNP. Same as the reform, doing business, ease of doing business in Puerto Rico with the permitting reform. It's going to only contribute 0.1% in 2024. In 2025, we have now this human welfare reform, it's labor market. It's going to contribute 0.15% in 2025, within the next 2 years. That the energy reform will contribute 0.1% to GNP, and the doing business reform, which includes that permitting reform that I've mentioned several times here, 0.1%. So the cumulative, the total of that in that particular year in 2025, that will contribute only 0.35% to GNP, real GNP. That's nothing, really nothing. And in 2026, we have the energy reform contributing 0.1%. The doing business, ease of doing business, the gray segment of that bar, 0.1%. Only those two will contribute 0.2% to GNP. If you were to add up all these from 2023 to 2026, it's not even 1% that it will contribute to GNP. And you remember what I showed you before last week. GNP is negative, real GNP is negative, even in 2023 through 2025, only small increases in positive growth through 2026, and thereafter it's negative growth. And we will have undertaken from 2027 onwards, we will have long-term fiscal deficits. So truly, as this last table depicts, it's more unfinished business in this agenda of Promesa, and for Puerto Rico as a country, as an island that is really striving, or really should work harder to pull out of this depression. There's more unfinished business regarding housing, still from 2017 hurricane. People who still don't have, they have blue tops in their roofs. You have the municipalities, half of them are in bankruptcy. How are they going to pay go for healthcare, for the pensions? How are they going to really contribute in terms of the services that they provide their constituencies? And they have not used 60 million that Promesa has allocated for the regionalization of the municipalities. Nothing has happened. In 2023, the University of Puerto Rico, that also has continued losing budgets, and it's still unfinished business. The Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority debt restructuring has not been finished. Neither has the PREPA, the retirement system. The healthcare reform, we have a Medicaid cliff sometime in 2027, 2028. Well, that reform has to take place. Half of the population is medically indigent. How is that possible? Well, with those anemic growths and negative growths, it's no wonder. Tax reform, discussion of in 2023 was just paralyzed. No tax reform, unfinished business yet. Government reform, unfinished business. Landfills, the garbage is going to be really creeping all around us, and this is an island. We don't have enough for another mezzanine on all the garbage that is really flooding us. And then more importantly, unfinished agenda. Where is the economic plan with a vision, how to execute it? That is the mandate that Promesa has to undertake if we are going to invest in economic growth. If you liked our economic capsules, don't forget to go to YouTube and subscribe to the Voice of Heidie Calero. Give us a like in those capsules that you really enjoyed. Don't forget, this is the service of Puerto Rico Economic Pulse, and that the economy is all of us. Thank you.